Welcome back to our channel Numismatics Hub. In the early months of 1991, the air in America was thick with both change and nostalgia. The Gulf War had just begun, and families across the nation were glued to their televisions, holding their breath with each passing headline. Meanwhile, popular culture was shifting. The grunge movement was starting to hum beneath the mainstream surface, and new voices in music, art, and technology were beginning to shape a future few could predict. Against this backdrop of conflict, innovation, and transformation, a simple 5-cent coin, minted quietly in Denver, entered the world. It was never supposed to be special. It was meant to pass through hands unnoticed, dropped into pockets, vending machines, and store registers. Just another nickel. A tiny sliver of American currency bearing the familiar profile of Thomas Jefferson on its obverse. But time has a way of transforming the ordinary. And the 1991 5-cent coin, under just the right conditions, would become a mysterious artifact, a story waiting to be told. When it first emerged from the powerful coin presses at the Denver Mint, the 1991 nickel bore all the classic characteristics of its predecessors. On the obverse, Jefferson's steady gaze, his high-collared coat, the slightly arched "In God We Trust" curving just above his forehead. To the left, the word "Liberty," delicately engraved beside the date, 1991. Below the date sat the small yet impactful D, the mark of Denver's hand in its creation. The reverse side was just as familiar: Monticello, Jefferson's beloved estate, rendered in miniature architecture, with the name proudly inscribed beneath. The phrase, "E pluribus unum," floated just above the dome, a nod to the nation's founding principles. All these details, etched into a small metallic surface just 21.2 millimeters across, were crafted with purpose, though never with the expectation of historical significance. Yet, within the quiet halls of the Denver Mint, where hundreds of thousands of nickels were pressed each day, something rare and unexpected slipped into production. A few coins, it would later be discovered, were struck with anomalies, subtle misalignments, overpolished dies, or traces of doubled features in the lettering. These errors, invisible to the casual observer, would make all the difference. In 1991, no one noticed. These coins moved freely, caught in the steady flow of commerce. Some were dropped on sidewalks. Others clinked into coin jars, or disappeared into the dusty corners of junk drawers. They traveled, quietly, without fanfare. Until, decades later, the right eyes spotted them. In a small Michigan town, a retired schoolteacher named Gloria had the habit of rolling her coins at the end of each month. She found it therapeutic. One evening, as she sorted through a pile of nickels on her kitchen table, she noticed something strange. One coin seemed crisper, more defined. The letters looked off. She turned it under the warm yellow light, and saw a faint doubling on the word "Liberty," a second shadow of a curve that shouldn't be there. She didn't know its worth, but she knew enough to keep it aside. Elsewhere, a young numismatist in California named Marcus was combing through inherited coin collections. He'd been drawn to coins since childhood, fascinated by their stories, their touchable history. When he stumbled upon a 1991 nickel with a sharply struck Monticello and a subtle die crack along the dome, he knew he had something interesting. Not flashy, but undeniably different. Stories like these began surfacing across the country. Bits of the puzzle started to fall into place. A growing whisper in coin forums, quiet exchanges in collectors' clubs, threads of speculation and discovery. It wasn't just one type of error that made the 1991 nickel valuable. It was a series of anomalies combined with exceptionally preserved conditions. Certain coins exhibited deep, mirror-like fields and frosted devices, characteristics typically found in proof coins. Others showed full steps on Monticello, a sign of a strong strike and pristine die. These features, while minute, were rare for the series. As collectors and researchers compared notes, they realized that the real treasure lay not just in the existence of a single rare feature, but in the confluence of multiple markers: a doubled die obverse, full steps, near-flawless surfaces, and preserved luster. Out of millions of 1991 nickels, only a few had these qualities in harmony. Gloria's coin, sent for professional evaluation, returned with a grade few nickels ever achieve. Marcus's specimen, once thought to be a simple curiosity, turned out to be a standout example with stunning clarity and rare minting precision. Both were now part of a tiny elite club, coins that had transcended their 5-cent purpose and become legends in their own right. As demand quietly rose and more enthusiasts began to understand what made these coins special, values climbed. Not because they were shiny, not because they were old, but because they were survivors, flawless, rare, and steeped in quiet mystery. The best examples remained tucked away, traded carefully among collectors who valued not just the metal, but the meaning behind it. One such coin, found not in a vault or a showcase, but in a simple coin jar in a Pennsylvania basement, would go on to astonish even the most seasoned numismatists. Its preservation was so pristine, its details so crisp, that experts believed it had skipped circulation entirely, somehow preserved by fate and forgotten time. When the news of its existence began to ripple through the collecting world, few believed it at first. A 1991 D nickel? Worth more than thousands of its siblings combined? But the truth, once revealed, was undeniable. Condition, rarity, and timing had converged in a single coin, a tiny monument to the unnoticed. And now, after years of quiet travel, it rests where it belongs, appreciated not just for its copper-nickel blend, but for the incredible journey it represents. From a minting facility in Colorado to a future no one could have imagined, this small coin tells a massive story. Its value today, confirmed and recognized by those who understand its true place in history, stands at an extraordinary $150,000. In the rhythm of everyday life during the mid-90s, America was in a state of quiet transition. The Cold War was in the rearview mirror, the internet was seeping into homes, and a new millennium was just over the horizon. On the streets of Denver, life moved steadily, morning coffee runs, cassette tapes playing on car radios, and a clink of coins falling into pockets, change trays, and soda machines. No one paid much attention to those coins, least of all the small silver dimes that slipped through hands with such frequency that they rarely even warranted a second glance. But among the millions of Roosevelt dimes minted in 1996 at the Denver Mint, a handful would carry a secret, an extraordinary story etched in metal no larger than a fingernail. These weren't just dimes. They were quiet survivors of a minting process that occasionally, just occasionally, allowed something exceptional to be born. Most coins are forgotten, used for laundry machines, gumball dispensers, and bus fares. Yet a few, sometimes by error, sometimes by perfection, become legends. The 1996 D dime, in its rarest and most pristine form, would go on to become one of those legends. It began, as all coins do, with molten metal. Blanks were punched from copper-nickel alloy sheets and prepared for their brief moment beneath the weight of precision dies. The Denver Mint was no stranger to high-volume production, and 1996 was a year of efficiency. Yet in this sea of millions, somewhere between man and machine, something happened. Perhaps a die was newly engraved, its surface unusually crisp. Perhaps a press was calibrated just right, hitting the blank with perfect force, pressure, and alignment. Or perhaps a small number of coins avoided the tiny dings and scratches of mass handling and were instead preserved in exceptional condition. Most people who received a 1996 D dime didn't notice anything. They dropped them into tip jars or gas station counters. But there were a few sharp-eyed individuals, collectors, hobbyists, and the curious, who looked closer. One such man was Gerald Simmons, a retired mechanic in Utah who loved coin roll hunting as a way to pass the time. He wasn't looking for riches, just stories. He liked the idea that something rare might be hiding in plain sight. And one afternoon, as sunlight hit the table in his small workshop, he saw something unusual glint from a freshly opened roll of dimes. It was a 1996 D Roosevelt dime, but the luster was different, sharper. He turned it under the light. The lines of Roosevelt's hair, the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse, all seemed more defined than any other dime he'd seen from that year. He picked up a loop and saw it, full bands on the torch. razor-crisp devices. A smooth, unblemished surface. It was, he thought, as if it had never been touched. Word traveled. Other collectors began to hunt. They scoured bankrolls, visited coin shops, and shared photos in online forums that were just starting to pop up on early web browsers. The 1996 D-dime had become a mystery to solve. Some were struck with slightly misaligned dies. Others had doubled features in the lettering or odd finishes, unofficial proof-like qualities in what was supposed to be a business strike. And while these variances stirred interest, the coins that captured the imagination of the numismatic world were the near-perfect examples, those few specimens that seemed frozen in time, untouched by wear or error, showcasing the Denver Mint's finest possible output. As more eyes focused on this seemingly humble coin, patterns began to emerge. Certain markers indicated early die states, tiny diagnostic clues like die polish lines, placement of mint marks, or even barely visible flaws in the metal that matched up to the earliest stages of production. Coins bearing these characteristics were especially valuable because they were linked directly to the sharpest, clearest strikes. And when those coins also displayed full torch bands, flawless fields, and gleaming luster, their status elevated from mere collectible to coveted treasure. 1 dime, discovered in a small coin show in Arizona, would go on to capture national attention. It wasn't flashy, no bold errors, no dramatic missed strikes. But under magnification, it was perfect. The torch bands were crisp and unbroken. Roosevelt's features stood out in perfect relief. The surface was as smooth and untouched as the day it was minted. Collectors gathered to view it with reverence. Dealers whispered about it. It was one of a kind, or one of very few, but this wasn't about a single coin. It was about a story hidden within America's everyday objects, a reminder that greatness can hide in the smallest, most overlooked corners of life. The 1996 D-dime didn't come with headlines or fanfare. It traveled through hands, across states, maybe even between generations, before being recognized for what it truly was. As the years passed, the coin gained more attention. Experts analyzed die states, traced provenance, and debated how such a stunning piece could have emerged from a year of otherwise standard production. Some speculated that a small run of presentation pieces may have been struck with extra care. Others believed it was sheer luck, a convergence of perfect conditions in a chaotic minting process. Whatever the truth, collectors agreed on one thing: the finest 1996 D-dimes were worth holding onto. And now, decades later, after traveling through time and history, with stories woven through its journey, one of these exceptional 1996 D-dimes stands as a testament to everything coin collecting is about. Not just value, not just rarity, but story, mystery, and the thrill of discovery. Its value today, in its most immaculate form, is an astonishing $170,000.